just automatically. Yeah. All right, let's go over some of these bowl games, guys. The first one among the Big 12 is the Baylor game with Air Force Academy. We will have representation of those who either hopefully Coach Calhoun or a couple of others that have covered Air Force. We've discussed that one in Fort Worth on the 22nd.
Oh, hopefully get Wesley and Dago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the location sucks. Fort Worth aside, playing at TCU Stadium is kind of embarrassing. It is. I would hope that is a motivator more than anything else. And, it is what it is. When you lose 3 straight and you go 6-6, you're not going to have the best of bowls, especially when you're a smaller school that doesn't have, tens of thousands that are at the ready to go travel just anywhere that you go. So it's a combination of things. And, yeah, it's lackluster, but it's better than having no bowl game.
It is. And you know what? You can pull together a winning season. Back in 2010 when they snapped the 16 or 17-year drought, they lost to Illinois. They had clinched a bowl game. They were 7-5. And remember now, in Matt Rule's second year, they got to a bowl game at 6-6 and then won the bowl game against Vanderbilt. So a chance to have a winning season despite a year that has been disappointing. Oklahoma State, Wisconsin in Phoenix in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl.
This is going to be a game I have no idea how to peg because both these teams are hemorrhaging players to the portal right now. So I don't know who's going to play for either team. It's not going to be a game. It might wind up being a great game because of that, or it might be exactly what you think in a kind of a mess because of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess the momentum is still in Wisconsin. The momentum is still with Wisconsin because at least they're looking forward to what Luke Fickell is going to do. Mike Gundy's been around a long time now, and they're just, with 9 in the transfer portal is that last count.
Hemorrhaging's a great word, by
9 in the transfer portal, and we're not talking about like freshmen that didn't see playing time or anything. Like we're talking about like starters on both sides of the football that are leaving. So yeah, I get with Wisconsin, the coaching change is going to cause some guys to look the other way. So is the transfer portal. I know Fickell's lost a bunch of commits too, and they'll have to, some of that though could be like, all right, see ya. Don't let the door hit you. But yeah, that's a weird matchup given the state of flux that both are in, but I'd go Wisconsin there.
Colt Barber has an article in the premium section about Baylor trying to manage their roster, about how they're going to go about their business, and really how do you massage that you might have too much, and that's part of the business. All right, back to the Big 12. Kansas and Arkansas, Memphis, Tennessee in the Liberty Bowl. Paul, you're going to be in Nashville, I think, that day. You'll be there during that time. Are you guys going to the game?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Arkansas.
This is one of the more intriguing games for me because both the quarterbacks are coming back, right? Jalen Daniels and KJ Jefferson are both coming back. So because of that, this game should be pretty good because these teams are both trying to build for next year. Kansas fans will be deliriously happy about being there
great crowd
in Memphis. And I joked last night on the big one too that this is the game. The loser of the game, or the winner of the game, could tell the loser how to pronounce Kansas. Because
it's in their name.
It's in their name. So it's either Arkansas or the Kansas Jayhawks.
Yes, exactly right, because of Arkansas. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Arkansas is Drew Sanders declared for the NFL draft, and they're hurting just like a lot of teams are right now in terms of like NFL declarations and transfer portal guys and things like that. So they won't have him. They also won't have Bumper Pool. He had surgery before they played Missouri. So those are a couple of name guys that the Razorbacks won't have. But yeah, that's an intriguing game. I mean, certainly some fun to be had there, I think, with Kansas, especially just being able to experience this and actually not just going to a bowl game, but going to a bowl game with a guy who has clearly built this thing up and has got some positive momentum bubbling that they can really, grab and run with. And certainly getting a win over Arkansas would fit the bill there. But yeah, I mean, be big for the Razorbacks to get a bowl win to close out the season too. So that should be a good game.
Winner goes 7-6. Loser has a losing season at 6-7. Then, right after that, the Red Raiders and Joey McGuire and Ole Miss, who Baylor beat last year in the Sugar Bowl, back-to-back games on ESPN. That game's in Houston at the Texas Bowl.
I like this one. I like this one a lot. I think it'd be interesting. I want to see Joe McGuire with a few weeks to prepare for a game with that team. Hopefully it's a little bit healthy. By the way, Donovan Smith is one of those guys in the transfer portal as well, on that tier of a guy who can maybe help some teams, but probably has to go down to the group of five. I would think. And everybody's coming back at Ole Miss. Jackson Dart's coming back. Quinshon Judkins. I mean, that should be a pretty loaded roster going into the – I know they've got a few in the transfer portal, but nobody at Ole Miss of note is in the transfer portal other than Luke Altmaier, and that's only because he was highly recruited a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that McGuire in his first year since leaving Baylor's playing the team that Baylor just beat in the Sugar Bowl last year. But that's just, weird coincidence. There was – I don't know if you guys saw it. I mean, Texas Tech fans are passionate, but there was like an insane amount of backlash to their bowl selection because of Oklahoma jumping teams. And I don't know. I saw that from other people from other teams as well. And I guess this is just the year that you learn that that's not how bowls are selected by standings. Like apparently a lot of people learned that this year because there was a lot of griping about the bowl selection process. I mean, I get it to some extent, but if you couldn't get exactly what you wanted, I think going down to Houston, you'll have tremendous representation and a very quality opponent in Ole Miss. And shoot, you get a win over Lane Kiffin and company, then, I mean, that's going to rocket boost you right into the offseason. So big matchup for Tech. And I think it's a game that Ole Miss needs to win too. I don't think that they want to suffer back-to-back bowl losses to Big 12 teams by any means. So, yeah, this should be a fun little game.
I think it's we should not predict bowl games because how can you with some of these games?
Well, I mean, you and I are winning right now. So
I think it's shut it down.
Oh, no.
All right, so then you go to the next one. Again, the Big 12 Conference bowl games, which we didn't get a chance to talk a little bit enough about yesterday. Then you go to December 29th, Oklahoma in Orlando, which was one of those where people lost their minds because they got – in that game against oh, my God.
Uh-huh.
Oh, in a game that, Paul, you went up to Norman one time to watch your beloved Seminoles get beat. Oklahoma, Florida State, a couple of blue bloods going at it in Orlando.
No, I would have bought another ticket to watch them get beat. I didn't want to watch them get absolutely wood chippered, which is what I saw in Norman. Now, and Florida State is 1-6 in this series against Oklahoma,
including 2000,
including a national championship game. So, at least historically on my end of it, there's a lot of please just get this win. FSU has a ton of guys coming back. They're a better team than Oklahoma is right now, but I don't know what that means.
Who would you rather have seen the Seminoles play among the teams that could have played that game?
I kind of wanted to see Texas Tech. I was kind of curious, but I think the outcome would have been the same. I think that there's a little bit of a gap between the two, especially as well as Florida State's played down the stretch this year.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the question is that when you look at like most entertaining game or whatever, I'd much rather beat the brand that is Oklahoma in a bowl game than beat a feisty Tech team. I mean, all due respect. That's why Oklahoma's in the game.
Yeah.
Because they're Oklahoma. And, that's a rightful complaint if you're Tech fans that we would have filled the stadium too, or we were higher in the standings. I get that. But this is college football, so it's all about the brands. And I think that beating Oklahoma, especially given the history you just rattled off there, would probably go a longer way in the minds of everybody involved than beating Tech, with all due respect. But either one would be a good win for FSU. I fully expect they'll get a win over the Sooners. I mean, I think it's good in so many ways that they made a bowl game just to kind of keep that going, but also to give Brent Venables the obviously needed extra time to try and continue shaping this roster. But I also would have been almost okay with them just fading into the offseason for a little while because of how frustrating this year was. But they do need the work. There's no doubt. So this will be beneficial, but I don't have high hopes for the actual performance itself.
All right, then later on that day, right after that, again, a lot of these doubleheaders because of ESPN and their commitment to the bowl games. Texas and Washington and San Antonio will never get over the Baylor-Washington game. RG3, Terrence Ganaway went nuts against Washington. That's where we got to know our good friend Sophie Mahler. But this is a 10-2 against 8-4. UT 50, 80 miles down the road playing in the Alamo Dome.
I mean, this one's going to be is Roschon Johnson going to play in this game? Because we know Bijan Robinson's not. He's done enough. He's going to go to the draft. He's not going to play in the game.
You don't think so?
I don't think Bijan Robinson's playing in the
I think
Alamo
there's a
Bowl.
50-50 chance.
I think he will. I think
think
he
he
will.
will?
Yeah.
I think it's 50-50 chance. So, yeah, I mean, he could, but I would not be shocked at all if he didn't play in this game and decided just to stay as healthy as possible ahead of the draft. It's in the Sugar Bowl or the Cotton Bowl, like a semifinal game or something. I mean, all due respect to the Alamo Bowl, but I could definitely see it in this day and age, him skipping that.
I mean, I know that from Texas reporters, they said that Bijan Robinson, after that game, said goodbye to all of them, like he wasn't going to see them again.
They had a huge send-off at the stadium, him waving goodbye and all of that. It was very fitting. That's why, again, it was such a weird reaction from a couple of Texas people on Twitter, but I mean, that's just Twitter for you. But I was talking about how they were trying to get him in the end zone there at the end of the game. And Baylor stopped him. It was like the one time they actually stopped him. And that was the only thing.
In the second half.
Yeah, and that was the only thing preventing them from having like the perfect send-off for Bijan, was he was going to go score another touchdown at the end of the game, time basically running out, and would have capped off the game and his last game in Austin that way. And instead he got stuffed and they won big anyways and it didn't matter. But yeah, that felt like goodbye. If there was going to be a goodbye, that felt like as close as one that he could get. But yeah, if he played in the bowl game, it wouldn't shock me just because of who he is. Mm-hmm. But I would doubt it if I had to pick, given what he's got coming up in front of him.
Yeah, I just don't think he's gonna.
I think it'll be a great game regardless. I think it'll be a really interesting game. Penix versus Ewers as far as the quarterback battle goes. Obviously, Texas defense really playing well by the end of the year. You got Kalen DeBoer being mentioned for all these Coach of the Year awards. Did a really good job with the Huskies. So yeah, that'll be a fun contest.
All right, Texas. This is their 6th appearance, from what I can tell, in the Valero Alamo Bowl. They played and beat Utah in 2019 badly. They hammered, was it Colorado? Yeah, 55-23 back in 2000, just a couple of years ago. But they had some dramatic games in that series, beat Iowa, Oregon State earlier. So this is their 6th appearance. I asked Paxton on the chat room, what's the UT fan base's reaction? Now, they'll load it up because it's only just an hour or so down the road. Yeah. That was his reaction. I don't know if that's everyone.
That's 5-7 last year.
I mean, like that's a top 25 opponent and watch. Like that's going to be a fun game.
No, I'm not talking about the opponent. I'm talking about the fact it's in San Antonio, rather than Orlando or Phoenix or somewhere.
I get
like
that.
Yeah.
I mean, San Antonio's cool, but if you've been there, you've been there. It's not the most exciting trip if you've been there, like most native Texans have a handful of times already.
And then Kansas State is in the Sugar Bowl for winning the Big 12. And because TCU, of course, they were going to go there anyway, no matter what they did. Alabama and Kansas State. And I would Alabama's going to be the favorite. I hope Kansas State plays as well as they have been down the stretch.
Hey, if Bryce Young opts out, then this game completely different to me. If this is a Jaden Milroe start for Alabama, and look, Bryce Young and Bijan Robinson are probably, about as similar character guys as you can think and what they do and what they mean to their team. So on the same regard of, like, I could see Bryce Young playing in this game because it's the Sugar Bowl, but I could also see the fact that he's probably going to be the first pick in the draft or a top 3 or 4 pick in the draft, and him opting out of it. I think that is a strong possibility. If it's Jaden Milroe instead of Bryce Young there, I think Kansas State's, to me, I would think Kansas State will win that game.
Yeah, well, I'll just put it this way. If Alabama wins, then they're the great Alabama. If they lose, they didn't want to be there.
Mm-hmm. Like
that's
Georgia
typically
against
how
Texas
it goes.
in the Sugar Bowl.
Like when Trevor Knight beat them in the Sugar Bowl or like any other time, that's kind of the deal. And I'll hear the explanation for why that really is the case or whatever. It doesn't matter, but that's what we'll hear. If they lose this game, they didn't want to be there or so-and-so wasn't playing. I don't care. If I'm Kansas State, that 10 years from now, 100 days from now, that says you beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. So I think the Wildcats are going to be fired. The blank up for that one. And Alabama, obviously immensely talented, and it'll depend on who shows up. It will, like, to lend some credence to that idea. I just hate that as a lazy excuse anytime they lose a game. It's that they didn't want to be there. So we'll see what version of Alabama we do get. But regardless, for K-State, beat Alabama, you beat Alabama. Nobody's going to go, Bryce Young didn't play in that game except for a Tide fan, and who cares? Because the record books are what's going to last forever. So yeah, that's a good opportunity for Kleiman and company.
We got John McClain to get to, so one more, and it's the biggest of all of them. No matter if you're a fan of another team, obviously Kansas State, Bama's huge, but TCU and Michigan, the college football playoff, the 3 o'clock game will follow the Kansas State-Alabama game. So the Big 12 right there in the middle of it against two alphas, two blue bloods. TCU, Michigan in the semifinal in Glendale, 3 o'clock Saturday, December 31st.
I think they match up well with Michigan. I mean, ultimately it's going to come down to, what happens, between the goal lines that day. But I think they match up well. I don't think that, either team's going to blow the other one out. Of course, TCU doesn't really do that anyway, but I think they can hang. Now, Michigan, has the higher star recruits and all that, and they've got probably bigger linemen across the board. But I don't know. I mean, TCU and Max Duggan, the way that they will that thing to win and do what they do, I think this is going to be a really good game.
I think it's a fun matchup. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's another 3+ weeks away, and we'll all be done with it by the time it actually rolls around. I'm picking Michigan for right now. I just think, bigger in the trenches, as Paul mentioned. I think that I side with them there. Obviously didn't lose too much steam despite the injury to Blake Corum, although you, of course, would rather have him. But, right now I'm picking Michigan, but I do think it'll be a great contest, and it's a great opportunity regardless for TCU so long as they don't go in there and just get blown out. I think that would be a bad look for them and for the Big 12. But outside of that, a respectable showing. Not that there's, what do you call it? A quality? I guess it would be a quality loss, but I don't really like to raise trophies for quality losses. But I mean, in so many ways, it could be looked at that if that's how it works out. So long as they put up a good fight, and I would expect them to do so.
All right, when we come back, John McClain.